This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at The Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
All right. Here we are. Kenan,
Yes,
where have you been?
I've been around, Ezra. I've been around. You just haven't seen me.
You know, people have been asking what happened to you.
People have been asking me the same thing about you. Can we clarify now? Put everything to bed.
All right. I think where we have been is going to reflect in our podcast.
Yes, yeah. I think that's
But also, in all honesty, I was also giving you time for your team to catch up. So now that you've come in closer, it's time for us to get back.
I had to retire from. It was been a tough time, man. So but we are there, up there, we are close, and there's a prophet that said it's a false prophet. Yes, but he's saying United is going to win the title.
Okay.
So, but how have you been? Where have you been?
I have been well.
Yes.
Taking time to think, process. This year I've done some good, I'm excited. Actually, I'm glad that we're back. Viewers, listeners, I'm glad that we're back. We've been joking and talking about things. Yeah. But this year it's been more, for me, intentional to work on certain things. Right. My physical, my mental health, my well-being, and I can tell you, I had a physical checkup this year.
Yes.
So
yes. Why do I feel like you're pointing fingers?
Because this has been a journey. We've talked about it, especially.
I have mine scheduled.
You have mine scheduled.
I have scheduled. I think it's around mid-March.
Okay.
Scheduled. So yes, again, it's about taking care of ourselves, taking care of us first, and begins. I think it's been 2 years, bro. We have been talking about the physical, so I think it's important. I think in the context of what we're talking about today, taking care of ourselves, and the first steps for at least for me, and I know for you too, was scheduling that physical.
Honestly, it's important for us to be able to preach. Is that how does the saying go? Practice what you preach. Practice what you preach, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, it's good to be back. We're starting slowly as we get back into this. We're going to be doing some amazing series. I'm excited about. We have one on difficult conversations.
That's
going to be loading up here a couple of weeks coming up soon.
7-part series or something like that. Yeah. Deep stuff is.
Man, deep. We went for research. We went to do research.
Why are we laughing like we did it? We actually did.
We did, right? Actually, I could have shown the members the book. Actually, I think I have the book here.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
There's a book that I'm recommending.
Yeah. So we've been talking about difficult conversations and how they impact kind of how we do our day-to-day stuff. And what's the book title? What's the book title, Ezra?
Yeah, man, this is the book, viewers. This is the book, man. We've been reading this book, Difficult Conversations, how to discuss matters that, what matters most. Now, I'm realizing it's so hard even to discuss, even after you've read.
Yeah.
But this is a topic that these authors have done an amazing job about, the importance of difficult conversations and having those conversations. I'm still struggling in that journey. And the reason I picked up this book is because I want to get better. And even still, I start realizing the more I read it, that there's something deeper that I need to work on. My whole being, my environment, where I came from, all these things. How can we hold those difficult conversations? So I'm excited about that series, man. I'm really excited about that series.
I think one of the main things I think that I've been getting from that book is allowing ourselves to have difficult conversations mends a lot of relationships. Many relationships have been broken because we don't take the first step of addressing the elephant in the room. So,
powerful. I still have so many elephants in the room. I really do. Yeah, I really do. Like, there's so many things that I'm struggling with that I need to discuss with many people. But the assumptions, the author talks about assumptions, talks about so many things that I think will help myself, yourself, I
Yeah.
believe, and anybody else who listens. So you don't want to miss
Ezra,
that series.
allow me to say something that, I mean, I think once when we were getting back to kind of doing our research, you and I were in that zone where we had difficult conversations with each other.
We did.
I tell you, it was uncomfortable. Honest. Now we are not. This is serious.
Actually, on a serious note, like
don't say the details.
we don't say the details,
yeah.
but yeah, we had to have some difficult conversation about.
Actually, we should reference that. I think as our we set up the time and. As the time kept coming, I've never told you about it, but I kept ruminating. Okay, how is this going to? What is that? How am I going to say this? What is Ezra? How is he going to take this?
Exactly.
So yeah, it was. I think that was real.
It was a good conversation. Actually, it's because of that conversation that we're back on air today.
Yeah, it's true.
We sat down, we talked, we asked us, and it's not like we had a beef. People might think that
no,
beef that we're not
beef.
talking.
Yeah. We have a little beef about Arsenal, man. But we did not have it.
We didn't have beef.
Yeah.
But I'm vegetarian. Anyways. So
it was reflection. I think
it was a good reflection about just reflecting about who we are, what we've done together, what we need to keep doing, where we struggle, what are the things that make us not to go to the next level, and really needed us to look at us. I know it was hard. Well, kind of like even me. Can I tell you something?
Yeah, we were asking each other. It's like I'm not gonna say no, but yes. That getting to that point where I can tell you something that's bothering me or bothering you, and I see it in you, and I'm trying to help you, you're trying to help me. That it was beautiful.
Do you know what I've learned in that journey is difficult conversations are even more difficult at home.
Right. Yeah.
And it is in those spaces where I, Ezra, need to work a lot. Really, really need to work a lot, because you're likely to take for granted, and I've done that. I've seen people, close friends, families, So how do we create that environment on a daily basis? You and I, we can talk about that conversation, but we might not have such a conversation again, maybe until who knows when, because we're not in each other's space and place constantly and things like those. So all this to say, there is a series on difficult conversations that's coming up.
I know someone that will be proud of us, man.
Oh yeah, I can tell who they'll be proud of.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful, and I think with having those talks, I think helped us to kind of move to the next level, and also translate this to other relationships as well.
Yeah. So let's jump into our conversation today. Our conversation today is something similar to that kind of conversation, and I think we're going to be building on these. We'll see how it goes. But one thing we about our podcast, viewers need to know we are very freestyle at times. Yeah, we love the freestyle. If you feel like we're going this way, that way, is because that's who we are.
Stay with us.
That's
just
part of the difficult conversation we're having. How do we stay?
Stay with us. Yeah.
But today's topic, we're talking about self-grace.
Yeah.
At first I was so excited. I thought that we have coined a term. I was about to tell people, cite us. This word is not there. But upon doing research, we realized we are too late for it.
Yeah.
Self-grace. Self-grace. I mean, Kenan, when we just started even thinking about what to talk about, what came to mind when you say self-grace? Like, what were you thinking when we talk about self-grace?
I was thinking about those times where I have been very hard on myself. Mm-hmm. Those times where I made mistakes, which is okay to make mistakes. I will get into that into the podcast, but then I was so hard on myself. Like, why did I do that? Why? You should know better. Why did you do that? So not allowing myself to forgive myself for the mistakes that I've done. So I think that's where my grace went. And I think if you quote the Bible, I think you'll give the viewers the verse. I think it says that where sin abounds more,
where love abounds.
Yeah.
Where
sin abounds, grace abounds.
Grace abounds. Yeah.
So I think taking that is when I make those mistakes, I think the grace of God is there, shower me, covering me. But I don't translate that to myself. I don't forgive, and I'm too hard on myself. And that's where when you talked about that time, that's where I went.
It's interesting that we talk about forgiveness in context of the other person.
Yeah.
The other person who wronged me. The other person that I need to forgive. The other person. But rarely do, at least myself, sit down and think, do I need to forgive myself? Are there things that I'm being too hard on myself, or have I been? And so for me, the reason this topic, at least for me, at least what really brought me to this is I was talking about getting better and taking care of ourselves. I'm having a conversation with a professional, and the professional asked me, in the series of these conversations, he said, Ezra, where I can't frame how they asked me, but it was to the extent of, where do you give yourself grace and compassion? What is the space of compassion in this whole conversation that we have had? And I realized that I don't think I've ever given myself compassion. Like, I don't know if I've ever given myself the grace that I give other people when they do wrong. I don't know if I have given myself the grace of the judgment that sometimes I'm trying to justify, oh, so-and-so did that, but maybe they didn't take their medication, but maybe they didn't do. I'm always willing to look for that space and that place for others, but have I really given myself that grace that I need? And realizing that, it was like an eye-opener for me. It's like, right, I need to give myself grace.
Because I think it is uncommon for us to go deep into that space where we ourselves, where we live. Because there's a place where we live in other people's life, but there's a place where we are in ourselves. So getting to that place where I can be in touch with myself and know that I need to not focus on what I'm giving others, but what I'm giving myself. I think self-grace is that thing where we don't necessarily give ourselves that much, and we don't even I can say it, we don't even realize that we are supposed to give ourselves that grace because we're not in touch with ourselves. So I think it
Yep.
How do you get to that point where okay, I can go into that deep place and give myself that grace? That's not a question for you to answer, but I think that's just what I'm thinking in my head.
Yeah. I think for the sake of the viewers, let's define self-grace.
Sure.
Like, let's get into the definition. When we're talking about self-grace, what are we talking about now? There's a definition here online, and I don't know who's the author here. Let me try to get their name. This article is written by Rebecca Ruiz, and I think she does an amazing job of just capturing and defining these. It says, give yourself grace. Says, what this means is giving yourself permission. It is permission to forgive your mistakes, lapses in judgment, and hurtful behavior, because no one is perfect. So self-grace is the permission you give yourself to forgive yourself for the mistakes that you have made, for the lapses in judgment that you have had, of course, when you're sober and sound, right? For the lapses in judgment that you have made, and hurtful behavior, because no one is perfect.
Yeah. Okay, that brings a perfectionism, conversation or talk. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
So that is the definition of self-grace. It's giving yourself really what that word means, grace. Forgiving yourself. Giving yourself permission to forgive yourself for mistakes you've made.
So, Ezra, let me throw a caveat here. Is giving yourself grace an excuse to make mistakes?
No, actually, I thought of that because it's lapses in judgment and hurtful behavior. That hurtful behavior can be to you or to other people. So if you give yourself grace when you're hurting other people, I think there's a boundary that has to be drawn with that, right? But also dwelling on the hurtful behavior or the unforgiveness for a long time, what does it do? What implication does it have to you too?
Yeah. One thing I can point out that the effects of not giving yourself, I think there's some instances where I haven't forgiven myself for mistakes that I've done. And I think like you say, dwelling on that, being in that space for a long time, I think it affected my self-esteem. I was not, I looked at myself as a failure. and I couldn't take on tasks that I needed to take because I hadn't given myself that space or that room to say, okay, I made a mistake. So even being approached to do something, do a task, my self-esteem was, okay, I cannot do this. So that affected, I think one instance was it affected my self-esteem, just staying in that space for a long time.
What
about you? Is there what would you think would be?
I think when we talk about giving ourselves self-grace, I think that it is something that I have never thought of, but at the same time never taught. I have been taught that you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you don't do this, you do that, you do this, you do that. But I have never been taught that it is okay when you fail, just rebound, get up, and do better. So because it is almost like you only have one chance, there is never that chance of processing the mistakes that I have made because I wasn't even supposed to make them to begin with.
Yeah.
So because that's how I've grown, I think I have more experiences of never giving myself a second chance, never really allowing myself to be me, comparing myself with other people. You have relationships that are not, maybe not as tight as they used to be. And sometimes you feel like it was my fault that relationship ended.
Yeah.
But sometimes you think that, was it really my fault? Okay, I played a role into it. So then I need to apologize for that. Maybe I need to, am I still feeling bad for what I did then? Yes. Do I need to? Yes, I need to. I need to get over it. I need to process it. I need to do better. I need to learn better. But should I dwell in that?
Yeah. And at what point did you actually move from that?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I can think of straight examples, but
no. But I think that what you say a good point that I think people know about our upbringing where we grew up, but I think that the concept of you have to do it and the concept of you have to do it, and when you do it right. And growing up with that, you come into a space where if it's a relationship or if it's a task you're given, we didn't have wiggle room to make mistakes. And honestly, until I came to these countries, when I realized that you can make mistakes or you can be wrong on something, but still you've given an opportunity to
second chances.
Second chances. You're given an opportunity to redo it, and even if you fail at the next time, it is okay. You do it again, right? So I think that kind of opened up my mind into saying, okay, I can say I forgive myself for that, but I have a redo, I have a do-over for some of the things, and there are things in life which you may not have
a second chance,
right?
Right. Yeah. I think there is room and space and place for second chances and for letting go and forgiving yourself. Let me use this example. If you go to a setting, it is okay for a young child who is just starting to walk or starting to run, who's crawling. You're in a funeral, you're in a gathering, you are in a church setting, you are in a, the moment you put that child down, they don't know the environment they are in. The first thing they know is just to crawl, to walk, to eat whatever they find. Is that right? No. But because we understand the age and the stage they are, we give them the room for them to make those quote-unquote mistakes. Because why are you eating things you're not supposed to eat? That's a mistake. Why are you crawling and yelling in a congregation, in a church setting? We're here. The child does not understand that. So you cannot punish that child for that.
Right.
You give them the chance for the child to be the child and make those quote-unquote adult, we will see those as mistakes. But as when you see a 11-year-old kid crawling, then it's like, what are you doing? That phase passed. Now we're expecting different, phases of you two. So there is each phase. There's a phase where teenagers will make certain mistakes. Are they mistakes? They are mistakes. Do they need to be corrected? They need to be corrected. But it is okay for them to make those mistakes in that era of their life. That is the phase that they are acceptable. They are allowed to make those mistakes as long as they're not detrimental.
Yeah.
When you start dating, you might date the wrong person here, there, right? You might find yourself. I mean, if you follow the principles and you relate, relationships and parental guidance and God and whatnot, yes, you might find that Mr. Right, Miss Right right away. But in the phase of dating and searching and understanding, are you going to make mistakes? You are going to make mistakes. But those mistakes, are you allowed to make them when you're married? You see what I mean? Yeah. So there is phases of making mistakes. Do we allow for those mistakes to be made in those right phases?
Yeah, Ezra. Yeah, I think just to add on that, it's interesting because when a child crawls when they're a year and a half, it's kind of it's almost natural for them to do that. But then when an 11-year-old crawls when they're supposed to be walking, you look at it now. Is it a choice?
Yeah.
So the choices we make in life sometimes we're at some point we're not even allowed to have self-grace. There's choices we make in life that do not.
Yeah.
Then they're not equal. You cannot give yourself grace. You can ask for forgiveness and repent or whatever it is, or do your time in jail.
Yes.
For the choices you make. Second point I wanted to say is that
can I ask a question before you move on? Even the person who commits a mistake and goes before the judge, and they see the person, they know their history, they look at their records, and they see this person as a clean record,
right?
Versus someone else with the same record,
long eruption, for sure.
So, what does even the judge do? What do you expect? What does even the lawyer plead for at that point?
Really don't know. There's not even enough room for the lawyer to even plead. But if someone has a first mistake or first choice, I call them choices, the judge has more leniency
because they give them grace. They say benefit of doubt. There's a benefit of doubt. But why do we do it to that when we see that record? But we can do that to ourselves.
Yeah. Maybe our rap sheets are longer. Because when your rap sheet is longer,
you're looking at it like,
right.
Even me, I cannot. Even if I want to be gracious to myself, I cannot.
It's true. I think Ezra, it's important because I think there comes to a point where a mistake becomes a habit.
Yeah.
And when it's a habit,
then there's a problem.
You've gone far away from self-grace because you've done it.
Yeah.
If it's the first time, it's easier for you to go to the self-grace option because it's kind of I think that it's practically it's true.
Yeah.
But if it's a habit, if you choose Arsenal season in, season out, and they fail you all the time, it's hard for you to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
In that context too, it's also if someone chooses to adopt a bad habit, and the first time they do it, and they get caught or they catch themselves, it's easier for them to say, okay, I can change this. But then over time, it's hard. You go away farther from the self-grace.
I catch you. You had a second point actually.
No, the second point I was going to say is that when we're talking about allowing ourselves to make those mistakes, I tend to think that making mistakes allows us to grow.
Okay.
And the reverse is true. The opposite is true. If you don't grow from your mistakes, then
there's a problem.
There's a problem there. I'm trying to think how that translates to self-grace. And
no, I hear your point. I hear your point. I think, let's be clear to the audience here. We are not saying that go making mistakes.
Right.
We're not saying that if you made mistakes, you should be forgiven and not be held accountable. We are not excusing bad behavior and habits and character. What we are saying is that there is room. Practice giving yourself grace where it's merited. Where it's genuinely and honestly merited. Forgive yourselves for mistakes that you made when you were a child. Forgive yourself. People might forgive you, but if you don't forgive yourself, there is nothing anybody else can do. you why is it, let me ask this question to you, Kenan. Why is it easier? Why is it important for you to have self-grace? And I ask that because let me maybe expound that question. When you versus when other people give you grace. Like, you know, if you say these people are judgmental, so I'm gonna cut. Why is it important for you yourself to give yourself that grace?
Personally, I think giving myself grace, like I said before, allows me to, first of all, to grow and learn. And I think giving myself grace helps me to mend relationships that I'm doing that intentionally, that relationships that may not have worked because I wasn't gracious to myself. Again, giving myself grace allows me to and I improve. It just improve on things that I do, and I procrastinate a lot. And there are no comments.
I'm giving you grace, man.
I procrastinate a lot, and I think when I'm saying this because this is kind of the opposite of what needs to happen. I procrastinate a lot, and I give myself grace for procrastinating. And what does that do? You know what I mean? That
It
kind of
builds that habit.
Builds the habit, right? So give myself grace kind of reinforces those positive things that I need to do that will help me kind of create a balance in life, prosper, and make relationships work.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
I agree with you. What I'll add in that is that when other people give you grace, or you give other people grace, or even let's say you don't give them, because the definition is like permission to forgive your mistakes, or lapses in judgment. I can control when you are judging me. I can choose not to be around you. So if I'm not around you, then I have put a wall, boundaries, healthy boundaries for me to deal with that element. But when I don't forgive myself and I become so harsh and judgmental to myself, I cannot pluck myself from that environment and that reality. So what that means is that this is who I am. I'm sad. I'm carrying a burden. I am constantly harsh on myself. I am constantly looking down upon myself because I cannot put a wall and boundary like if it was other people that I can say that person judges me. Let me just cut them off and let me do that because I am the environment and this is the environment that I have created. So imagine how many of us, that's how we're living. It's not something somebody wronged us. It's not something that somebody judged us. It's not something, a behavior that somebody else does. It is a behavior about myself that I don't like. And I'm living with it. And I'm not forgiving myself. And I'm not working to get out of it. And what kind of life is that?
Ezra, let's take a break.
Self-grace. You want to So we, as we said, listeners, we want to process. We want to process. And we're talking about self-grace here. Please think through. What is it that you need grace in for yourself? Have you ever paused to think why you do what you do? Why you're mad at people? Why you're bitter at some things? Why you... Maybe it's things in yourself that you have not addressed that you need to address. When we come back, we'll start talking about tips and practices of things we can
reasons
do.
why we need self-grace.
Uh-huh.
All right.
This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at The Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk. This is the Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and Stitcher. Like us on Facebook at The Amazing Truth Podcast. The Amazing Truth Podcast. Real issues, real talk.
right.
Under the
We
theme
are back. We are
Grace.
back. Giving yourself self-grace. Say it differently. We are talking about self-forgiveness. Giving yourself permission to forgive yourself for things that you have done. I like a quote here by there's an academy called Clear Fork Academy or something like that. Clear Fork Academy, and it says this: self-grace or self-compassion does not provide quick fixes to the substance use disorder or any behavioral problem. As we're having this conversation, it doesn't mean that because you're forgiving yourself, then you're going to rebound from these things. But it's a step to the right direction. He says, what self-compassion can do is lead us down the path of active self-forgiveness. It says that we understand that self-forgiveness does not mean accepting inappropriate behavior or agreeing with others who invalidate our feelings or experience. Instead, self-forgiveness involves progressive compassion, understanding of how our flawed thinking, feelings, and behaviors contribute to a history of poor health and suffering. So it is a self-awareness tool. Maybe I'm suffering from this because I have really never forgiven myself. Maybe I'm suffering from this because I have never been compassionate to myself. Maybe I'm suffering from this. Now that you're aware of that, start putting in the work that you need to put in. It could be getting mental health help. It could be praying more. It could be, all that jazz. So we are not condoning bad behavior, but we are saying it is a good step to start realizing and creating that awareness. So Kenan, how can we practice these things we're talking about? First of all, have you ever taken time to even process areas that you need?
No, I think consciously I haven't. I don't think I have. But I think unconsciously there's those situations where I'm saying I deserve grace. Not intentionally. So I think I haven't intentionally dug deep and said, I deserve it. And I think that brings me to the first point. I think we need to tell ourselves that we deserve grace. We need to tell ourselves. I think when we're researching for that, this we said something about saying no to negative self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to reach deep down and say, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one thing that I need to consciously say so that I can dig deep into self-grace.
So I think one thing I'm hearing is creating time.
Yeah.
The first process is creating time, being able to create time to say, I really want to have this time where it's just me thinking, processing my feelings, processing my emotions, processing my thoughts, putting them down. And if you don't if you're not going to create time to process, then you might not even be aware that you need to forgive yourself for certain things. Yeah. So I think being intentional to create space, that could be seeing a professional, help you process through those things. That could be you journaling at the end of the day, right? And that could be just sitting quietly and creating 15 minutes out of your busy day just to sit still and shut down all electronics and whatnot, just to pause.
Well, one thing I do, and I try to do it myself, and I do it with my kids, is self-affirmations. Mm-hmm. I practically tell them to stand in front of the mirror and say, I am strong, I'm beautiful, I can do this, I can face this day.
You do that?
Yeah, no, I do.
I'm just imagining you in front of the
mirror. Ezra, that's self. I think saying no to negative self-talk.
Exactly.
I think that's.
I had to throw in some comment there.
But I do. We know when we brush our teeth in the morning, I tell them, we are going to school. You're starting the day. You can do this. You can face whatever is thrown at you. You'll come back, you're strong, you're beautiful. So I think that kind of gives me time to kind of dig deep and self-process. So self-affirmations, I think that's a good one.
Self-affirmation. So create time, number one. Mm-hmm. Self-affirmations. I think for me what has also worked is, in moments where I've done these, is scriptures. I am wonderfully and fearfully created or made. Like, just knowing I don't need somebody else to tell me I'm wonderful, I'm fearfully created, I'm beautiful, I'm handsome, you know. Just being able to remind myself that I am that, you know. I don't need to be 6 foot tall, and you know what, I don't need to be in the standards of. And I think for me, the scriptures, there are verses that they go to that I think that one just comes to mind to me. Like, I'm wonderfully and fearfully created and made in the image of God. That's it. I am a child of God. You know, I you know, I can do these through Christ who strengthens me.
Amen,
right? I can do all these through Christ who strengthens me. I'm here for a purpose and a reason and a season. I'm not just here because somebody decided I need to be here. You know, there is an intentional. So those verses, the Psalms, for me have been a good place just to affirm myself. You know.
Wow. Beautiful. Do you do that in front of the mirror?
No, no, I don't do that. Surprisingly, I do that mostly when I am down. But I wish I can do that more often. Like, I don't need to be down because that's a crisis mode. That's when I start doing that.
And I know, Ezra, don't take away the importance of doing that when you're down.
Okay.
Because when you're down, it's easier for you to go back to it's easier for people to go back to those things that are
unhealthy coping mechanisms.
Right. So no, that I think when we are down is when we need to kind of dig deep. When we are good, Ezra, it's hard for us to kind of.
But we need to cultivate that.
Yeah, that's what we need to cultivate. But it's important for us when you're down. I think when you are vulnerable, when you're at the lowest, it's always easy. The thing that will give you gratification fast is what we tend to go for. So I think it's important to do that. One thing I also do, and I think I'll tell myself is, you know, I'm doing the best I can. I'm not perfect at that, not perfect, but I'm perfect in the sense that I'm not doing it right at that point, but I'm doing the best I can.
Okay.
You know, sometimes as a parent, I tend to feel that I'm not a great parent. There's instances where I would say things or to my kids, and I'm like, okay, that reflects negatively on me as a parent. Or when I don't provide some of the things that, you know, they need, I tend to think to myself that I'm not a great parent. But I think there's a reason why I need to tell myself that there's a reason why I won't give them that, because they probably don't need it.
Okay.
But that doesn't reflect on me as a bad parent. I'm doing the best I can. I've raised them to where they are, or God has helped me raise them to where they are, and I'm doing the best I can. So giving myself grace when I'm parenting is one thing that I need to constantly, intentionally tell myself.
I think going off what you've said, I think there are moments where I found myself telling myself, I know they're not happy. I know they don't feel this. I know they don't do that. But deep down my heart, I know I did my best. Because my best might not be accepted, might not be embraced, might not be celebrated. But deep down, I did my best. Because many a times when you don't get that affirmation from people, you think that you didn't do it well. You didn't think that you did that, you know. So coming back to the point and saying, no. I know they're not happy. But to be honest, that's the best that I knew to do. And I did it. So, yes, can I grow? Yes. Can I create room? Yes. But I can go feeling bad. Let me use this example. Somebody asks you for money. Maybe they ask you for $100. And you give them $50. And they're disappointed. Then you leave there feeling like, man, I should have given more. Man, I could have. You're feeling bad, but even what you've done, you've helped the person to the extent that you could, but you're still leaving there feeling like you know. So just being able to realize that if that's all I had, that's all I had. Do I feel bad that you still are $50 short? Yes, I do. Can I help you? No, I can't. It's beyond my help.
Right.
I'm not there I'm not able to help you. If I had, would I have helped you? Probably yes, I could have helped you. But even if you're disappointed that I couldn't now, this is the best that I could bring to the table.
Yeah. So, and maybe that other person may already sees it as a big help.
Yes. They may or may not see it
as a big help.
So being able to just be content.
So let me ask you, Ezra, Are we allowed to make mistakes?
We are. We are allowed. We should be allowed to make mistakes.
What if it's something that you absolutely cannot?
There's some mistakes that are costly. It doesn't mean when you make mistakes, they're not going to cost you.
But what if it's something that nobody in this world will ever make a mistake in that thing, but you may yet make a mistake in it?
But that's why you got to come back and say you're yourself. You got to come back and say, I'm me. Maybe that's why you are created, to make that mistake.
Versus other people.
Versus other people, because there's a reason and a season behind that. All I'm saying is, I think because there's no one who's perfect.
Right.
The pressure then becomes extremely too much for us to be perfect. Can you handle that pressure?
But do you see it being very difficult for that person to kind of give themselves grace when 10 people that have come before you haven't made a mistake in that specific thing or that specific aspect of life, but yet you came and you made a mistake? How do you tell that person that self-grace is important, knowing by history, many people have come, nobody else has done that mistake? Again, how would you talk to someone in that space?
It's hard. I don't know how to talk to that person. But that's why we're having this conversation. I hope that person could be strong enough to go back and say, was I honest? Was it real? Was it the best that I could give? Does it look bad in the eyes of most of people? Yes, it does. But still, this is me. Be comfortable in their skin. This is me. It's not. What if it was beyond your control and you're the first one to make that mistake? Then what? Even if you're hard on yourself, then what do you change?
You can't. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I think, let me put it this way. If God created us as perfect as He was, gave us room to make choices, and some of them are going to be mistakes, who are we not to give other people and ourselves room to make mistakes?
Yeah.
Now, did God want us to make mistakes? No. Did He know there's going to be consequences? Yes. Were they going to be painful? Yes. But He still gave us room.
Ezra, did God create perfect beings?
That's a deep, good question.
Did God create perfect beings?
Yes. You can't say they were imperfect. They were perfect. But He gave them a choice.
So, yes, and yet we are saying here no one is perfect.
Because after that, then we became imperfect beings after sin.
So is our quest perfectionism?
Eventually, ideally, that's what we ought and we need to be. Can we be perfect in this state by ourselves?
Can we?
I don't think so.
So then why are we talking about self-grace, yet we cannot be perfect?
Why are we talking about self-grace?
Yeah, because self-grace kind of says you cannot be perfect, right? Mm-hmm. But yet...
But again, who defines perfection?
If you can go back in how God created us...
then it's only Him who can help us to get to that level of perfection. But if we talk in human terms, who defines perfection?
Right. What standards do we create?
Who creates? So if I want to live by your standards of perfection, man, I'm not you.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah.
So it is giving yourself grace to say, I am not Kenan. I am Ezra. And this is the best that I'm bringing to the table. As long as it's the best that you're bringing to the table.
The best, you're doing the best you can,
I don't know. I don't claim to have all the answers, and I don't think I have the answers. We're processing these together, but maybe the next series we should talk about perfectionism. And we should talk about
what it is, if it's good, if it's healthy.
Exactly.
Is it attainable?
Is it achievable? Who sets the standards? We can talk about that.
Yeah.
But coming back to self-grace, what we're agreeing today is, man, just give yourself grace.
Because I deserve love. I deserve compassion. I deserve growth. I deserve all these things. And all those things come when I give myself grace.
Exactly. You cannot receive it from only other people without you giving it to yourself. You know, I cannot be the employee my boss expects me to be. Should I do my job? Yes, I should.
Yeah.
But if my boss is expecting me to be there 24/7, I cannot give that. So then do I feel bad for that? So being realistic and saying that I have things that I'm still carrying in my life. These things perhaps have nothing to do with what everybody else did. It is just decisions that I've made myself that are poor, that I need to forgive myself. It is judgments that I've made that were not the best, that I need to forgive myself. It is those things that I need to forgive myself. And once I'm aware of what those things are, then put mechanisms in place to address that I don't find myself there again in the future.
Yeah. I think then it goes to self-pity. You know, you pity yourself and you cry and you're staying in that victim stance. You're just there. You're crying for yourself. Yet carrying yourself off from self-pity and giving yourself grace allows you to, grow. For instance, and telling yourself that I deserve all the best things and I'm doing the best I could.
Is there a place for self-pity though? I think there's a space for self-pity too.
Yeah, I think I would say, I'll just speak for myself. I think I'm allowed self-pity, but not to dwindle and stay
not
in
until
it
when it starts messing up with
your it affects every other aspects of your life. That your self-pity, and you want pity from everybody else. Yeah. And you translate that from not you but everybody around you, then I think that becomes toxic. But we're allowed that self-pity,
I feel bad for myself that I didn't get what I needed.
Yes. And then, spring up from that and say, okay, now I'm going to get
what am I going to do to get there?
Right. So there's times where we're allowed a season of self-pity, but shouldn't affect other aspects of your life.
Listeners, viewers, as we start wrapping this down, what is it that you need to forgive yourself? What are the judgments, decisions in the past you've made that are still haunting you, that you're still carrying? What is it? Maybe people forgive you and you're still dwelling in those things. Sometimes, Kenan, you get to sit with people and you hear them talking about, and trauma is real, and adverse childhood is real, but you can hear they're still stuck in that world, right? Yeah, we can talk about it, but it's how we talk about what we did with it, where we are now. Are we still talking about it, like the cause and the reason why I am who I am, all that. So let's strive to give ourselves the grace that we need,
that we deserve.
We deserve.
Right. I think the word is deserve.
We deserve. Let's strive to give ourselves that grace. Let's not use self-grace to excuse bad behavior and habits. Let's not use self-grace to justify bad behaviors, but use it wisely to help us not to be stuck in this heavy burden that is wearing down on us.
Yeah, and just to add to self-grace, allows you to have a deeper understanding of yourself. When you give yourself grace, you are in touch with your emotions, you are in touch with your feelings, you are in touch with your surroundings. And ultimately, that gives you inner peace. It gives you a balance of life, and it gives you some of the tools that you need to, be a better version of yourself. So, take time to tell yourself that you deserve the good things, the finer things in life. You deserve love. You deserve compassion, and translate that into self-grace and.
As we close down, there's an author here who puts it very well. She says, "Do unto yourself as you do unto others." Many times we treat others better than we treat ourselves. Of course, we are seeking that outside affirmation. We are seeking that outside approval. We are seeking that. But in other words, she's saying practice self-compassion, having understanding, acceptance, and forgiveness of yourself. This looks like being realistic, flexible, honest about your bandwidth, your energy, and your interest. Am I interested in this thing, or am I going because people are going? Do I have the energy to do this, or am I doing because other people are doing? Do I have the bandwidth to help you the next thing, or am I doing it because I don't want to say no and make you feel bad? Am I being flexible enough, or am I pretending just to be here so that or am I just holding my, line, not being flexible? Am I being realistic, or am I being unrealistic? So these are some of the verbs that we should look for when we're thinking about self-grace and thinking through and processing that. So she gives 4 points. 1, say no to perfection. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that perfection is a bad thing, but when it starts affecting yours. Number 2, give yourself credit and a reward, but give a pat in your back. Yeah. Number 3, press mute on negative self-talks. You mentioned that earlier on. And then lastly, says say no to some things. So some couple practical steps that people can walk away with.
Yeah. That's it. How we
have spoken. We are serious. We sound serious.
Because we are. Give yourself grace.
I'm used to us laughing and joking and everything. But just parting shots as we close. Kenan, can you close us out?
No, I think you wrapped it up well. I think make it practical. Listen to this. Go back. Use those 4 tools, or there's many other tools. Find that thing that works for you. But ultimately, remember, you deserve the best and finer things in life, and find that inner peace. Yep.
What's the verse that you said?
It's in Romans 5.
Mm-hmm. What does it say?
Where sin abounded, grace abounds even more.
May that be our mantra. Know that where sin abounds, grace abounds even more. God's desire is to restore you. He sees your pain. He understands your unforgiveness. He sees that, and he desires to set you free. So we invite you all guys to do an retrospect.
Yes.
Think of yourself, meditate, and hopefully you can find ways to get out of the cycle of feeling bad that you might be stuck in. That has been
our time.
First podcast in the year
2023.
All right. Here we come for many more.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Amazing Truth Podcast. We hope you were blessed as you listened. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you on the next one.